Look, I don't care what you are. This ends now! We're the ones who live.
Hey guys, Nick here, and today we're getting into part 23 of What If Dale Survived the Remake. Now, in the last episode, we covered part 2 of the flashback that explained how Daryl, Tyrese, Sasha, Dale, and all those people survived, and the overcompensated teaser that Dale would live but be very much different, which I apologize for. There was literally no other way to say that. Now, the group is split into two halves. One, to go after Eastman and Abraham and get the other survivors there, and the second half to find Noah. Now we're going to see what Gareth has in store and what the cannibals will have with Rick's half, and get into the rest of Rick's half in the next episode. So let's get into it. But before that, did you know that physicists believe that there are two alternate realities? One in which you subscribe to Nick's topics, and one in which you don't. Now let's set the scene for these two realities. If you don't subscribe to Nick's topics, Weiss will come out of nowhere, pop up straight in front of you, use his staff, and literally put you in the position of Broly, and you will have to listen to Goku / Kakarot crying for not just until you are ultimately almost killed by King Vegeta, but in a paradox dimension where you listen to it forever. But if you do subscribe, you will be given the opportunity of a lifetime to be in the Wreck-It Ralph arcade universe and get to choose who you are and what arcade game from Wreck-It Ralph or just in general that you want to be featured in. So, if I were a betting man, arcade games are cool, and Wreck-It Ralph definitely went on to make me appreciate arcade games a lot more than I did. Not like I ever hated them, but if I were a betting man, I'd definitely choose an arcade game over being put in the place of Broly having to listen to Goku crying for eternity. So hit that sub button, and let's get into it. Now, we get to Abraham's group, but before that, Gareth and the cannibals have gotten out of Terminus and are on their way to try and track Abraham and Eastman, who's also there, along with, that little group of people. But, remember, Martin is the one who told Gareth where Tyrese and all of them, where they all went. So, the problem lies for them finding them whenever Gareth opens the cabin door to find Martin not injured, but a walker. But how is that possible? Eastman just knocked him out. I get he knocked him out twice, but even with the stick like that, there ain't no way that Eastman would just switch sides like that, barely getting into his character. So, did he somehow accidentally kill him? Or did something else happen? How did he become a walker? Well, you see, after waiting what seems like an eternity for Morgan to arrive with Rick and these people who Abraham and everybody else heard is going to come with them to Washington, they waited too long and left. So, someone went back right whenever they were about to leave. Lizzie. She had snuck back whenever no one was paying attention, and they were too drawn up in what might happen with the cannibals and the waiting. And Martin begins to wake up. And then, whenever he wakes up, he hears the door open and properly focuses his eyes and himself. And the door is beginning to open. And Martin, at this point, he is full on expecting Eastman to just come back in there and whack him in the head again. And this is his eternal punishment for, being a Terminus resident. We don't know what would go through Martin's head and how he would comprehend this, but he is very surprised when he doesn't see Eastman, but a little girl, that of which being Lizzie, obviously. And Martin's just like, really? Some little girl just got into the cabin? Like, who is she? Martin, I don't think, would have known who Lizzie was. But before he can even process this, he doesn't get a chance to, because a knife is stabbed straight into Martin's neck by Lizzie, who then smirks in a very childish way, saying right after, "Now you get to be with your friends. You get to join the things in this world that matter," that of which being the walkers, because Lizzie was crazy. So, yeah. Then everything just goes to red for Lizzie. She keeps stabbing and stabbing and stabbing, and she does not stop until the groans and cries and just complete and total trying to fight back from Martin just quiets. But she doesn't kill him, because remember, with the whole Mika situation, Lizzie wanted everyone to be walkers. So after this, she snuck back Mika, and I guarantee you maybe like Abraham or Rosita or Eugene or even Eastman would probably question this as to like, maybe they wouldn't even pay attention, but some part of me thinks that someone would have known that Lizzie snuck away, mainly Mika or someone like that, but it really wouldn't pay any attention to the story, so they wouldn't care. Anyways, once Gareth and his company find Martin as a walker in the cabin, they're like, no. First, his brother, then his mother, and now his second in command. Now, this little group of people, whoever saved them and everything else, now they're done. Now they're going to pay. Because remember, since Martin's dead, Gareth would have no information on Morgan. So, unlike he did with Carol. So, yeah. Anyways, Abraham and the company we're getting back to, Abraham is like, we should go to Washington now. Not only because we sat there waiting for so long, but because we're wasting valuable time to save the world, and we still don't know what those cannibals are capable of if they'll come after us. And Eastman's like, he is about to interject by saying something with his philosophy of words and his, who he is. But before he can, they all hear a shout, yelling, and it is Father Gabriel. So the little group goes and saves Father Gabriel from certain death. And the meeting with Father Gabriel, with Eastman around and much more like-minded company, besides obviously Bob, Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene being there, so they're canon counterparts. Besides them being there, this would be much nicer without Rick and like Michonne and Daryl and them. It would be much nicer and would make Father Gabriel less afraid of them for now, because he has been on his own since, he locked out his congregation at that time. So ultimately they go to Father Gabriel's church, just the little group in them, and at this point, Abraham sees the bus and is like, nah, this is like a surefire decision. This priest was our golden gateway to saving the world. He got a friggin' bus over there, and we could use this to go and frickin' take Eugene to Washington. This was just a diversion, but a good one since they found a vehicle. But Eastman doesn't agree with this. He agrees to go to Washington, along with Bob, Lizzie, and Mika, because it's just them. But he thinks that since they're here and met Father Gabriel, maybe they should stay here and maybe stock up supplies, even if it's just a little bit. It would help them, especially since they really don't have much. It's just a small little group. And Bob would definitely agree with this because, like even Eastman said, it's a small group. And if they try to go now and everything, going now to get stuff would be better than having to stop on the way to Washington. Like a grocery run. Anyways, the food bank The group going to the food bank would consist of Rosita, Abraham, Gabriel, Bob, and Eastman. So Eugene would be back with Lizzie and Mika. And unfortunately, Father Gabriel's cowardice would get Bob bit. Because especially considering the fact that their group is small, so ultimately there is nothing saving him from that. And I do feel that Father Gabriel's his lie about who he is and locking out his congregation and everything would come up, but it would be nice to see in this context Eugene finding out about it, because he was very perceptive. And Eugene and Gabriel's relationship throughout the course of the show, this would make this a very defining moment for a different story. So ultimately, that would be really good for something like that to be discovered by Eugene. And they were both weak whenever we got introduced to them, so this would be a strong moment for Eugene to step up. Anyways, Eastman at this point, and after everything has been figured out, agrees finally that since they pretty much are good, now they can go to Washington. They've waited a good bit for Morgan and them. They haven't showed up. Everything else, they should just go. And Abraham smiles, nodding at the fact that Eastman's finally seen, like this is the right thing to do. But Bob is the only one who interjects. He doesn't interject at first, but after a few minutes of them celebrating and about to go, Bob just looks dead at everybody and says, "We can't go." And Abraham just laughs at this, saying that, dude, you can't be serious. For one thing, you wanted to go, and now you don't. Is this some kind of joke to, stall us or something, or are you just messing around? But Bob is not messing around. He is dead serious, and every part of his face shows that he ain't joking. And Abraham picks up on this and is like, okay, what do you mean we shouldn't go, or we can't go? What could possibly be stopping us? We ain't sitting here any longer for people who obviously ain't coming. And for all we know, those cannibals back there could have got them, or they could never have been showing up here at all and could have just been a ruse. They gotta go now. What could be the reason? But Bob doesn't say a word and doesn't explain and just sits there looking down for a good part of a minute until Abraham snaps at him, and then Bob, with no choice on his belt, pulls down his shirt to find he has been bitten. And his leg has not been, eaten, so it's just him getting bitten. So he actually gets to keep his leg in this little twist here. But Bob says he got bit back at the food bank, and if they go, they risk putting the entire group at risk because he'll have to worry about him. He won't make the run to Washington in time for Eugene to even cure him. Which is ironic, because what if Jim survived? Literally, Jim survived just until they got to the CDC. But with this, obviously, it'd be different. And Abraham thinks about this for a sec, thinking about what Bob's just said, and the knowledge that Bob would be, him saying he'd be a liability and put the group in danger and everything else. He's trying to take all this in. Then after a few minutes, he snaps out of his own trance and just says to everybody, well, we ain't got no choice. The man's spoken. Now, we just leave him. We're going no matter what to save the world. If we have to leave behind dead weight and guys who are just bit, keeping secrets, ain't no worth. We gotta go. Abraham would say something along those lines. You guys get what I mean. But Eastman would interject almost immediately and pull out his stick and be like, really? You're gonna leave behind someone who could help us? He could be the first cure if Eugene's, he could make it. But Abraham is like, the man's spoken. He won't make the trip. And not only will he jeopardize the mission, he'll slow us down. And he's right. He won't make the trip. You really want to risk that when we're so close? And Bob would agree with this on a fault with Eastman that they should just leave him. He wanted to believe that Sasha or some other people were alive or wait for Morgan or anything, but that ain't happening now according to what's happened here. So before he can say any further, then they all hear something. And Bob's like, no, some people or someone's definitely here. to hear noises outside. We gotta either go or hide in here right now. And Eastman takes charge of the situation and is like, well, whoever or whatever person or people are out there, we gotta deal with all this going on right here later. Abraham agrees on this, seeing as it could be those friggin' cannibal freaks, but he does say he stands by his decision to go, with or without Eastman and without Bob. But before they can actually hide or determine who has come here, Gareth and the other cannibals burst open the door and hold everybody at gunpoint, saying that they caused a lot of trouble for them, for the people there, and for their home. Now, this is where it gets serious. They're not leaving this church alive. And Gareth really underestimated them for being a small group, and yet they had it in them to do that to their home. But Eastman said that it wasn't like they wanted to do it. And they just took the home, sure, but it's hardly like anybody truly died. Seems to have everybody that was there. But Gareth says no, he's dead wrong. His brother, his mother, and his second-in-command, Martin, who was stabbed repeatedly with a knife. But Eastman does not know who could have done that. Gareth could be lying and could have killed him himself. They don't know that Lizzie went back and killed him. But Gareth says the games end here. No one leaves alive. But before they can do anything, the two cannibals that got killed first in the church by the door and everything, they get taken out because they would be just in the middle of the church, not by the door. They get taken out, and Gareth's fingers get taken out, all in the same instance with no words spoken. And who could these shots have come from? Whenever Eastman and everybody turns, Lizzie, Mika, and Bob especially all stare in astonishment at who the figures are. It's Rick and his group who had come with Morgan to find Bob, Eastman, and everybody else. Their group had finally caught up with them, seeing the cannibals run in the same direction from Terminus. So it all cut into the clues nicely. Context clues. But Rick says immediately, put your guns on the floor and kneel. Except this time, he shot Gareth's fingers before saying it, and Gareth didn't say anything. So obviously that changed. And Gareth and them didn't even know about Rick and company, so that's a big change too. But how will it go from here? Do you think that Rick and the group will kill Gareth and the cannibals the same way? Do you think that anything major besides the fact that it took longer to track them will change with Martin dead? And what is happening with the other group tracking Noah, and what will happen here for the rest of the story? So basically a bunch of loopholes and stuff. What do you guys think is going to happen? You guys know the gist of what I do at the end of these episodes. And that's where we leave things for the moment. Hope you guys like this episode. And the next episode will cover what happens here at the church a little bit, but mainly I will try to tie into as much of the Finding Noah group as possible. That will be most of next episode, going into the next one after that. But if I explained more, I'd spoil it. So I'd see you guys next time, and I hope you enjoyed.